This is McCook's Mr. Bill. It's an honor to have you here looking at my little pellet rifle, aren't you? With that in mind, I've had a number of people lately talk about snipers. And so we'll go into that just a little bit. I've had more than a few tell me that the deer hunters of America think that they're better than they are, that they couldn't begin to match the snipers that are out there, be it military or police snipers, that the deer hunters are just a second or third rate hunter and that they can't possibly do what those others do. And I kind of shake my head a little bit and said, well, I wouldn't lump them all together. Now, true, there are 11.4 million deer hunters in America. But I bet some of them are awful good. And even those that are on the bottom of the scale for being quality shooters are still awful good. I said awful good. With that in mind, I got a story though. Heard some time back, and it was a family back east in the Civil War. And their property had been overrun by both sides a couple of times, but they had stayed out of the ruckus themselves. He had two young teenage boys, but they hadn't been drafted either direction to go. They were too young. And so the man had a nice farm though and was reasonably well-to-do. Well, the Union Army had trouble with what they called bushwhackers, was killing some of their men. So they just had on orders that if they found anybody out, walking around with guns, they could shoot them. Well, these two boys that he had, they had their squirrel rifle out there and was doing a little bit of hunting on their place. Doesn't matter. The Union Army found them, and the captain and the sergeant, they ordered them shot. And so they shot those two young boys. Yeah. And then add fuel to the fire. The boys had told them who they were, what they were doing, and everything. It didn't matter. But they told them who they were so they knew where to take the bodies. But they didn't take just the bodies. They left the bodies, but they cut the heads off of those two boys. And they went to the house, and right in front of the house on stakes, they shoved those two heads. And said, this is what we do to bushwhackers. This is what we do to bushwhackers. Devastated the family, needless to say, and the farmer. So he took his wife 40 miles over and the rest of the family. He had slaves and he had already turned them loose and made them free, but they stayed and worked for him because they liked him. And so they kept the place going, and he then took, and he had some money saved up, so he had a rifleman or a blacksmith make him a special rifle. It was 50 caliber. It was a 50 caliber Kentucky rifle, extra long barrel, and adjustable sights, double set triggers. And so he built up that rifle, had it done, and then he practiced with it. And he continued to practice and practice. The first ones he went after was the captain and that sergeant, and he caught them out on a patrol. And talk was that the shots were taken at or near 500 yards away. He killed both of them. Didn't shoot anybody else. And then from then on, his sniping career, he did his very best never to kill only sergeants and above. Only sergeants and above. And he killed a bunch of them. He's recorded and estimated that he himself killed well over 100 Union soldiers. He killed over 100. Now there aren't an awful lot of snipers that can put that kind of number out. Yeah. 100 men died, and he was using a black powder single shot rifle, muzzle loading rifle. Could you imagine what if you ticked off a farmer today, what he might be able to do? Because most of them don't have muzzle loading single shots anymore. Yeah. And they got scopes, all the goodies that they've got, and range masters, you bet. So needless to say, when they say that the deer hunters wouldn't be that big a help in any kind of conflict, you'd be sadly mistaken, I think. Because the majority of the country will run and try to hide if we are ever invaded, for example, by China. But I bet, and I put money on, that the deer hunters are going to fight where they are, stay where they are, and they will sell their lives dearly. You guys have a good day.